So, so the thing that we have seen as far as just like feedback on if I were to look and just kind of say where are the clients failing, I would say it's in communication. And so communication, y'all gonna hear me say this quite a bit throughout this entire presentation. Communication is key. Even if you don't have an answer, even if you have no answer at all, just saying, hey, kid, I don't know, is communication. And that works, right? So that we can talk through what you should do or how to move. And I always tell my clients, like, tell me everything. So that way I'm not put up against a wall and then your funds are in jeopardy. So let me know. I am your friend throughout the entire process. And the benefit is you have me as a friend on both sides. Most times you only have a friend on just the real estate side, but on the mortgage side, none of my deals fall through because I am your friend. So I can literally tell you what the underwriter is looking for. I can tell you what to do, what not to do, all of the things so that you don't fail. But you have to listen and you have to respond. It's super important that you all are mentally prepared to receive. A lot of people talk about blessings, and it's like, if God wants it for me, then He'll give it to me. But what if He has it for you? He keeps saying, "Hey, it's here," and then you miss the blessing because you weren't prepared. You weren't prepared to receive. So I always want to just make sure that we're in the space to receive as well, mentally, physically, and financially before we even start shopping. And we're going to help in the process of the credit. Okay. All right. So let's start. So the first step is selecting a real estate agent, and then the very next step is obtaining financial pre-approval. So if you all are here, most of you all have already done the lending app, and probably maybe most, not 100% of if all, but most people have also gone through the loan review. So the loan review allows me to review your entire profile and for us to tell, like if I need something else from you, tell you what I'm missing, right? But what I am doing is setting up a file. So we do not send people to credit repair without having a loan review. So if you all have already turned in documents, like if you've completed the application and I have requested documents, then you want to hit in that same email is highlighted and in bold that says schedule your loan review. That allows us to get together and talk through your entire profile. Because again, we are doing this with intention. So we, at the end of the day, we have a goal, right? You all have a goal to purchase a property. So what we don't want to do is go through credit repair and then you still can't purchase. That doesn't make sense, right? So we'll actually go through it. We'll make sure you have enough income. If you don't have enough income, we'll talk through how can we get more income? What are some solutions to getting to that destination? Very rarely am I talking super intently about credit because those are the things that we're repairing. Someone just came in and it says iPhone. Could you drop your name um, in the chat for me, please? We are taking roll call, just FYI, to make sure that you get the certificate at the end of going through the class. But something says iPhone. If you could I just let you in. Okay, so we are after your financial pre-approval, then we analyze your needs, and what this is what we're doing right now is in a buyer seminar. And then from the right here, most of you all also have already signed the buyer brokerage agreement. So I want to go a little slower. Normally, I don't spend a lot of time on the buyer brokerage agreement, but I do want to remind you that this is a legal obligation between the buyer and the agent, right? So this document tells you what your responsibilities are as a buyer, and it talks about my responsibilities and duties as an agent. One of the responsibilities is, again, communication and timely disbursement of documents. So that is important, and I want to pull that out. The other part is if you are going through our credit repair program, it discusses how quickly you have to acquire a property after you have gone through credit repair. So after you've gone through credit repair, you have to close on a home within 45 days. That is more than enough time, even with my slowest down payment assistance program, to actually close on a home. Now, of course, if something is delayed and we know about the delay, then we may be able to, be a bit more flexible on those terms. However, that is the requirement. So I do want to make sure that you all are, again, fully understanding what you are committing to, right? Because it is a commitment. So not only just going through the credit repair, purchasing within 45 days, you will see 16 homes. I do want to make that clear. So most of our clients, and this is kind of going to this section here of selecting properties, we like tours. So that whole piecing homes together, seeing a house here, a house there, it doesn't work. It actually, we've never done, well, we started that way, but we have found that touring is better. It allows our clients to compare and contrast properties much better. You have a clearer mindset. You're able to then say, okay, I like house one and house five. I did not like the others. It doesn't put you in a space where you feel like you're rushing through a decision because you've seen numerous homes, right? And so typically our clients, we are very intentional about the homes that we send over to you. So if you have not completed the job form, please do it. Jay texted everyone this morning, but please complete that because that tells us what type of properties to send over to you, what your criteria is. And so we'll go out and we'll view between 6 to 8 homes at a time. We see two sets of 8. So you have 16 properties, which is a lot of homes to see. It takes about 3 hours to get through a set of 16. So, but most of our clients, honestly, because of us being very intentional, they choose a property within that first tour. The market is hot right now. Like I have a client that's shopping today, like right now. And every house is going under contract in like a few hours. So you do want to be decisive. If you are an indecisive individual, this is something I will work on during this time frame because it is a very aggressive market. And you just want to make sure that you're able to say, okay, I like that. Let's move on it. Because if not, it could be gone the next day of sleeping on something. So you definitely want to pull the trigger. So we'll select properties, go and view the homes. We'll write an offer to purchase that particular home, and then we will begin to negotiate terms with the seller. So as we're negotiating terms with the seller will come back and say, okay, we've accepted the offer. So then we will be in what's considered a legally bound contract. So we will be in an executed contract. Okay. So there are a few things that happens after you're under contract. So what I'm about to go through right now is 3 out-of-pocket costs. So 3 things to have. So this is money that you need to save for before even going out to shop. Okay. So 3 out-of-pocket expenses and then 3 protective clauses. So 3 out-of-pocket costs, 3 protective clauses that will protect your funds. All right. So immediately after you go under contract, there is a term called earnest money. Earnest money is utilized as liquidated damages to the seller. So if you default on the contract and you walk away for no reason whatsoever, then the seller is due liquidated damages because you ultimately wasted their time. You had them pull their property off of the market for an extended amount of time and they could have sold that home to someone else. And so they are due damages because there is a contract in place, a legally bound contract in place, and you have defaulted on that agreement. So earnest money is typically 1% of the total purchase price. So if a home is $300,000, expect to save $3,000 up front. Okay. And that needs to be already readily accessible, whether it's in a 401k or in your account, 1%. And I'm not saying 3,000. Some people mishear, that y'all don't hear my words, right? And they'll say, oh, okay, you only said you needed 3,000, not on a $500,000 home. No. So it's 1%, 1% of whatever that price is, whatever the purchase price is, that's what you want to save. If it's 200,000, 2,000, 300,000, 3,000, and so on and so on. But 1%, that's your first out-of-pocket cost. All right. So I'm going to also talk about your first protective clause. This is your due diligence period. So in the state of Georgia, Georgia gives its buyer, this is a buyer beware state. So that means that you have this time frame, which is pretty unique for Georgia or for just states in general, to go out and do your due diligence on the property. The only thing the contract states is that the seller is responsible for simply giving you the house, like for selling you the home. But it does not talk to repairs and things of that nature. And that is where your due diligence steps in. So during this period, it is a negotiable time frame. So it can be typically we use anywhere from like 5 to 7 days. So 5 to 7 days, let's say you go out to the property and you say, Akia, every time that I go out to this home, I want the sky to be pink. and we go out to the property and the sky's blue. And you say, you know what? I wanted the sky to be pink every single day. I don't want the house anymore because it's not pink. And I say, okay, well, we're within our due diligence period. We can pull out of that property. So we can literally walk away with that earnest money. Remember the earnest money? We can walk away because we're not in default. We're still within our protective clause. This is one of your protective clauses. We're our protective period that we can walk away and still retain earnest money. But it has to be during that period. Okay. So that is your first protective clause. Now, the second out of pocket cost is your inspection cost. You want to have your inspection during this due diligence period because the inspector's job is to go out to the property and ensure that the home is in a condition that is favorable to you. So we're always looking for major things. We're looking for plumbing, HVAC, roofing, electrical, things of that nature that make sure that you're not moving into a problem. So once we get the report back, we'll get the report back. It normally takes 24 hours for us to receive the report, but we'll get the report back and we'll create what's considered an amendment to address concerns. So we'll write all of those repair requests on a document, send it to the seller and say, hey, seller, we need you to address these concerns. Then the seller has to say, okay, let me look through this report and I'll let you know what I'm willing to do. So then they'll come back. Again, this is a negotiable time. So they'll come back and say, hey, I'll do all of it or I'll do some of it. And if it is some of it or if it's none at all, then I'll come back to the client and tell you exactly where they are, in our negotiations. And then you can determine whether you want to continue with purchasing the home or not. And so again, this can only happen during the due diligence period because if we need to walk away with earnest money, this is how you do it without jeopardizing earnest money. Otherwise, the contract as it states just on a normal day is an as is contract. So you are agreeing to however the property looks right now in its current stage. If you have, passed the due diligence period, you didn't do an inspection, then you're accepting the home as is. Okay. But otherwise, we need to do an amendment to address concerns, and that will tell us what's going on with the home. So sometimes, and let me also say this, I'm just thinking of questions or things that may pop up in conversation, but some clients want to ask for like different things like paint up front. They want to ask for cosmetic things up front. That is never my approach, is to ask for something cosmetic. We always want to ask for the big ticket items. And it could be a cosmetic thing, right? That could be a big ticket item. But what I would prefer to do is get a full inspection report. And if there needs to be a roof replacement or a plumbing system replacement or an HVAC system replacement, those are typically high ticket items that can also, stop your home from performing and you living comfortably in the space versus paint. You get what I mean? So that's cosmetic. We look at that second. We look at structural things, structural defects, and items around you living comfortably first. That is our first approach. We have referrals, so we will send over our 2 referrals that we have that are extremely detailed. Not all inspectors are equal, so the cheaper you go in an inspection, the worse it becomes. Typically, inspections are between $350 to $450. That is your second out-of-pocket cost. So $350 to $450. It also depends on the size of the property. It depends on if there's any extra spaces that they have to inspect, like a basement or crawl space. If there's any detached units, like a pool house and things of that nature, or ADU that they need to inspect, that can increase the actual inspection cost. If the home is on a basement, I typically recommend radon testing as well. Radon is typically in homes with basements if they're dug into the ground, like, which most basements are, but some are above ground. But if you're digging into the ground, then that is where that radon gas comes from. And if the levels are too high, it is actually the number one cause of lung cancer. And so we want to make sure that the seller remediates the concern if there is one. So on basement lots and things of that nature, we do want to add on radon. So that could be an extra charge. But typically $350 to $450 is your cost for inspection. All right. Your very last out-of-pocket cost is the appraisal cost. So those are two different things. And sometimes the verbiage gets misconstrued, but inspection is there to check on the status of the property, the condition of the home, and then appraisal is there to ensure that you're not overpaying for a property. So we all have this thought of how much we think a home is worth, but it's not about personal thoughts, right? And it's not also about the history of what the home sold for 2 years ago. Value increases. I mean, honestly, you can have a different value every 6 months. It just depends on what the market will actually pay for that home. And it is done by a unbiased appraisal. It has to be done within a 1 mile radius unless there are no like kind properties, and then you end up expanding the territory. But it is very specific in how appraisal value is actually completed. But the appraisal is $675. 675, okay? $675. That is your third out-of-pocket cost. Now, the two things that are credited back to you. So let's say you owe $10,000 at closing. The earnest money will be credited towards that 10,000. Let's say you did 2,000, so now you owe 8 at the closing table. Also, your appraisal will be credited to you at closing. So those two things will be given back towards your overall closing costs. The one thing that is not credited is your inspection because that is an optional service. Even with new construction, I still strongly suggest a inspection because I have two new construction properties right now and we have found something in both. So we do want to make sure that we're still inspecting every single type of property. All right, so I want to go through those out-of-pocket costs again. We had earnest money at 1% of the total purchase price. We have inspection costs at 350 to 450. I would just say 450. And then we have appraisal at $675. Check my notes real quick, make sure. Oh, that was Kiva. Hey, Kiva. Chanel and Shima. Okay, Shima. Thank you. Thank you. All righty. Oh, you went to NCAT, Shamika. We were looking at NCAT. That was one of the schools. I was trying to get her to go to FAMU. She's not interested. Any HBCU I'll be happy with. So, all right. So that was your three out-of-pocket costs: appraisal, inspection, and what did I say? Appraisal, inspection, and earnest money. Sorry, earnest money. Your three protective clauses. So the first protective clause was due diligence. Now, this section here illustrates the financing contingency. So this is the financing contingency. So this is once you start going through the process of the loan. The loan part of things is the most detrimental part of your entire process. It can be detrimental. But that's something that you definitely want to stay on. Anytime I am requesting documents, and I will always communicate with you all, but anytime I'm requesting documents, I always tell my clients, top of mind, you need to turn that document in same day. So I have a lot of nurses, I have truck drivers that's always on the road, but they get it done, y'all. So there's always time in a day to figure it out. And I want to say this lightly, but also strongly that there is no excuse. I've had some of the busiest clients. Everybody has a job on here, right? And probably I don't know if anybody's busier than me at this point. I got two jobs in the the Chris Tucker thing, but no, we have to find time, and it's because we got to protect your earnest money. We have to protect your funds and your entire process, right? And so just think top of mind, same day. However, at the absolute latest, if you are not able to get it to me same day, by the next morning, I have to have that doc in my inbox because every day is a processing day. And remember, we're a bank, so we have banking hours. So if you're turning a document in at 6 o'clock, we're already cut off for the day. The cutoff time is at 4 every single day. So try your hardest to get something there. Also, you're not the only client. I want to say that. And I'm not even just talking for myself. I'm talking for my lending team. So they are handling other people's deals and things of that nature. So when you turn in a document, we get in line. That's when we're getting in line for just review. It's not even being sent to the underwriter. So kind of keep that in mind that it's a race to the clock. It's a race to get in line as well so that your file will be reviewed that day or even next day. So just make sure that you are very timely with the submission of requested documentation. Okay. So I do want to go through the process. Credit is checked. So whenever we are running, most of you all, if you're on our credit repair program, I have not done a hard pull on credit because there's typically no point unless you didn't finish your application and it just pushed you through. Normally, I can get a soft pull and can organize your entire file without having to do a hard pull. If you are not a part of credit repair, then I did pull your credit in order to give you a pre-approval if you already have that pre-approval. I have to run you through DU, and DU requires a hard pull. So whenever you're buying a house, you're getting a loan, just know that you have to have a hard pull on credit. The great part is our credit lasts for about 90 days. So the soft pull that I do is sufficient enough for me to see if you do need credit or not, credit repair or not. And if you do, I won't pull it, right? There's no point in doing a hard pull when I know you need credit repair. But if you don't need it, then I have already pulled it in order to give you a pre-approval. All right. Underwriting. So you will go through underwriting probably about 3 times. So before I issue a pre-approval, I have to put you through an automated underwriting system called DU or LP. And so those systems will give us an approved eligible or a decline, one of two. So, or even a manual. I'll say a manual as well, where we can, a manual down, it's a downgrade from an approval. It's stricter processes. You typically have a cap on how much you can actually purchase, what your debt to income ratio can be. So, we can do it, but you also can't be late within the last 12 months if we're going manual. So I'll look at it and I'll tell you exactly what you're approved for. That also happens during that loan review. I typically go through your entire file with you and I'll tell you what we are expecting to get approved for. Now, if certain things are removed from the credit report, then I may say, hey, there's a little wiggle room here on, if we were able to get this removed, then the system will probably give us an approval. I'm pretty spot on at this point. At this point, if I see something, I'm like, that has to be removed. We are typically removing like all derogatory transactions, anything that was in collections, anything that was in charge-offs, bankruptcies, foreclosures, things of that nature is what our credit specialist is removing. And so depending on what you have on your credit will determine how much time it will take. So we are pushing quite a few people through. I started by saying we were only going to do like 20 people. We're now at 125. So we have 125 folks. So we are very busy, y'all. It is truly a blessing, but I'm not taking any more outside of what I've already done. And so the list is closed. But we're getting it done. Everyone is becoming homeowners, so it is great. So credit is pulled, underwriting, like I said, you'll go through that a few times. During this process, also the appraisal will be done. So the appraisal will be ordered. The appraisal typically takes the longest. If you're VA, VA is a minimum 10 days. And so I love VA. It is the most underutilized product that's out there, but it is so flexible. But VA takes typically the longest. FHA repairs or appraisals are very particular about the condition of the property as well as VA. So there's not a lot of flexibility when it comes to condition. Conventional loans are a little bit more flexible when it comes to the condition of a property, but everything has to be move-in ready. Okay. In the state of Georgia, a survey is not a requirement. So some people want to get a fence added to their property, and that is absolutely fine. You can, that'll be a third party cost, but it's not something that the bank actually needs. Please keep in mind that your mortgage is comprised of principal, interest, taxes, insurance. There's two insurances. There is your mortgage insurance and there is your hazard insurance. The hazard insurance is your homeowner's insurance that protects the inside and even the exterior of the property. It's almost like car insurance. But mortgage insurance only protects the loan. Okay. So you do have those two things, but that makes up that one payment that you make every single month. Your escrow account. So you all have probably heard people say escrow. Your escrow account consists of your insurance and your taxes. The tax amount is per property. So every house has a different tax amount. So that's another reason why whenever I'm given a pre-approval, I am estimating, right? Because I have no clue of which house you'll choose and how much those taxes will be. So once we start shopping, then I come back to the system and I make sure that the numbers still work. Because some people's taxes could be, I mean, in Atlanta, $6,000 is normal right now, 6,000 a year. And then we break it down by monthly payment. And we might have only estimated instead of 6,000, we might have estimated 4,000. And so, we'll come back and we'll make sure that it still makes sense. But typically 1.25% is like the normal millage rate for most counties. So I'm putting that in when I'm giving estimations. But principal interest, taxes, insurance. Insurance is something that you do have to shop around for, not mortgage insurance, but the hazard insurance. So, you'll definitely want to ask your current insurance provider if you have a car or if you have renter's insurance, if you can bundle. We are shooting for the lowest policy possible because without that policy, or without the lowest amount, then your debt to income ratio can increase. And we are trying to stay within ratios as well. So I've already, whatever I have estimated, you just want to make sure that you're as close to that estimate as possible. And of course, I'll let you all know what that number is. We also have insurance referrals. So we like to be a one-stop shop. You should literally not have to think during this process. My team will absolutely give you all the things that you need in order to close on the property. So we have the insurance reps, and we also have your inspection representatives as well. So we will send that to you early on in your process so that you can start shopping around for insurance. Simultaneously, while the mortgage process is going, and let me go back just a little bit. The financing contingency, remember that was your second protective clause. So doing all of this process and making sure that we can get a clear to close, we typically negotiate a time frame with the seller of saying, hey, seller, we need, let's say, 21 days in order to get a full approval from the bank. So that allows us to, again, turn in documentation, get it in front of an underwriter, get them to approve our file, and be secure in our purchase. If we cannot get an approval, and let's say we get a decline on day 20 of 21, then we can go back to the seller and say, hey, seller, we got a decline from the bank. We need to walk away from the deal, and you can walk away with earnest money. But if you come back on day 22 of 21, then you have to stay with the deal or you will be in default and you will lose your earnest money. Okay. We don't lose earnest money around here. Like we do not do it unless the client literally just goes ghost. Then yes, we will lose earnest money. But typically, we don't have those problems because we're on your dates like a hawk. So we know exactly when due diligence is expiring. We know when your financing contingency is expiring. And so we're working towards that. But that goes back to that conversation of making sure you're turning in documentation promptly because every day counts to protect your interest in the contract. All right. So we talked about the financing contingency. We talked about due diligence. And the last protective clause is the appraisal contingency. So you hear a lot of people saying, I don't want to overpay for a house, or I think the house is worth this, that, and the third. Well, let me tell you, the lender is probably more cautious because they're the true investor, right? They're putting the most down on this property. They will not pay a penny more than what the home is truly worth. And so they will go out. That's why they require this appraisal to be done. And if the appraisal says that the home is worth $400,000, then we're good to go. But if it comes back at $399, then we will go back to the seller, say, hey, seller, the home did not appraise. We need you to reduce it to the appraised value. The seller then has the ability to say yay or nay. Sure, I'll reduce it, or no, I won't. So if the seller reduces it, you do have to stay with the property. You have to stay with the contract. But if they decide to not reduce it to the appraised value, then you can walk away with your earnest money. Okay. So sometimes a client, if it's like $1,000, they might say, well, I love the house this much. I'll pay the 1,000 extra, but the lender will not. So you would have to take that loss out of your own pocket if you decide to stay with the deal. Okay. So that is your last protective clause. You can never overpay for a property. because the lender won't allow it unless you decide to pay cash for the difference. Okay. But that is your last protective clause is the appraisal. I want to hit this one more time. So your three out of pocket, earnest money, inspection, appraisal. Your three protective clauses, financing contingency, due diligence, appraisal contingency. Everybody got that? I'm checking my chat. Okay. All right, cool. So we already talked about that, the financing portion. Simultaneously, while the lender is processing, we've also ordered title. So in the state of Georgia, Georgia is an attorney state. Some states are title states, but the attorney actually handles the clearing of title and the transfer of ownership. So the attorney will also reach out to you and say, hey, could you please fill out this buyer information sheet? So that way they can begin to prepare the title work so that ownership will transfer from the seller to the buyer. So they'll also ask you for something. So my real estate team will be asking you for things. The mortgage, which is me as well, will be asking you for things. And then the attorney will be asking you for things. That's the only three sets of people that should be communicating with you. So we will conduct a title search. We'll ensure that all of the liens are cleared from the previous owner, that you are that all encumbrances have been removed as well. And then once that happens, then we're able to head to the closing table. Now, there is a thing called owner's title insurance that we strongly suggest that you keep on. I will always estimate that in your figures. Like whenever I'm giving you a loan or a fee sheet, I always include owner's title insurance because it's really important to have. What it does is it acts as if like it's a gap insurance policy. So let's say that maybe the seller was in dispute for a lien and the lien was not public information. So the attorney was not able to find that lien. Well, after you close, the lien comes back on the property, right? And so you, because you're now the owner of the home, you are responsible for everything that comes with that property. And that includes any liens. So if ownership have already changed over, then you're also required to be responsible for the lien that's attached to the home at this point. The only way that you don't have that responsibility is if you have owner's title insurance. Owner's title insurance kicks in and says, hey, this particular person was not the owner of this property when the lien was established, and they will pay it off for you. But it is extremely important. I know so many people that lost their properties, not my folks, but like Les Brown that talks about it on a very high level. This was typically like back in the day, or even people that buy properties from like auctions and things like that. They may not do a full title search. And so then they end up transferring all of the liens that were attached to that property to themselves. So it's really important to have a full title search, which our attorneys do, but also to have that gap insurance because even if the attorney can't find it, you want to make sure that later on down the line it's not yours. And most times it's like thousands of dollars that is attached to that actual lien. Okay. So after title has cleared, the lending has cleared, then we will obtain funds for closing, close on the property, and then you'll take possession of the home. So what is the difference between a pre-qual and a pre-approval? So pre-qualifications, we do not issue. A pre-qualification is you simply completing a loan application and not turning in any documentation to back what was on the app. A pre-approval literally means that you've done the application and you have turned in documentation to back what was on the app. We've run you also through underwriting. So we've run you through that pre-underwriting system that tells us that we are pre-approved at that point. That is the only way that we will go out and shop is if we have a pre-approval. Pre-qualifications move too much and we don't like surprises. So we want to ensure that you can truly purchase a home. So if you're out shopping, that means that you're pre-approved. I want to make sure I'm not skipping. Okay. So I always get a question of a kid, like, what should I expect out of pocket cost wise? Well, it's actually comprised of two things. And a lot of people, use one term, which is closing costs. But closing costs is actually comprised of down payment and closing costs. It's two separate things. So the down payment portion is dependent upon the program that you're utilizing, whether it's FHA, USDA, VA, or conventional. Each program type tells what the client's minimum down payment is. So FHA is the most commonly used product, is typically 3.5% down, and then conventional is typically 5% down. Now there are some conventional programs out there for specific clients that may have a lower income amount, and so we can typically go down to 3% on those particular clients. But normally 5% for conventional, 3.5% for FHA. VA, depending on how many times you use your entitlement, is typically all covered. It's a 100% loan product as well as USDA. Those are for the rural areas. So that's typically 100% coverage as well. Closing cost is estimated at 2 to 5%. So I like to say 3.5. So that is a good number for closing costs. Now, all of the closing costs consist of the attorney fees. It consists of that escrow account that you have to fund, which is your insurance and taxes. And it also includes, if there's an HOA, it includes those fees as well. So their initiation fee and the first payment for that year. It includes all of that, even points. So if you're buying down your rate to a specific rate, it will include the points or the cost for that rate. Okay, so that is your closing costs, two separate things. Down payment shows that you have skin in the game because the lender typically is saying, "Hey, you gotta show me that you have some skin in the game." As much as if I'm putting down 96.5% as a lender, you should be able to put down 3.5%. That's how they look at it. Or if I'm putting down 95%, then you should be able to put down 5%. And so they want to see some skin in the game. Now there are down payment assistance programs that's out there, and we have various programs. And so a lot of clients, will call me and say, "Hey, can we talk through the programs that you have?" And I typically say no. And the reason that I say no is because there are too many programs. And I don't have enough time to go through every single program. And it also doesn't matter, right? We want to be intentional. You'll hear me say that quite a bit in our conversations and our process. So the very first step is completing the application so that I can see which programs you would even qualify for. And then we will then discuss all of those programs, but not my entire database because some things you just won't qualify for. There are regional programs, there's state programs. There are in-house programs that I have as well. So we have so many different programs and all of them have different criteria. So a lot of folks will say, "Well, I'm a first-time home buyer." And I say, "Okay, that's great." Because that doesn't mean anything. Just because you're a first-time home buyer does not immediately equate you to being in a group that should receive down payment assistance. That is a criteria. That is a part of a program. So some programs require that you are a first-time home buyer, but that is not a title for a program. There is not a first-time home buyer program. But there are various requirements that are a part of programs, and some of them do require for you to be first-time home buyer. First-time home buyer could even require you, like that you've never purchased a day in your life, or it could be, well, you haven't owned a home in like 3 to 5 years. It just, again, depends on the program. I do have some programs for like my higher earners because some of these programs also have a household income max or a household size max. But I have in-house programs that are even for my repeat buyers. I have clients that have bought several times and they just want to hold on to their liquid assets a little bit longer. I have that. I have programs that will cover your down payment. Now the monthly payment is higher, right? But you can hold on to your $14,000. You can hold on to your $10,000. And it may increase your payment by $100 because it's an installment on that. So it's a first and second on those types of programs, but that's typically for your higher earners, those that may not fit in the box of a traditional down payment assistance program. So we have various programs and we will always give you all of your options. Sometimes down payment assistance is not the greatest option, to be quite honest. Especially for some of my lower earners, it may not be the best because some programs have a set interest rate. And if I can't move around on interest rate, it reduces your purchase price and you will not like the product. So we'll go through that and we'll talk through all of the ins and outs of each product that you qualify for. So in the state of Georgia, well, I'll say as being a part of the National Association of Realtors, we are actually restricted from providing certain information, right? That could steer you in one area or another. So we are prohibited against steering. So we can't say, yeah, you should, because of the crime in this area, you should stay away from that area. That's steering. And so we can't talk about crime. We can't talk about school ratings. We can't talk about things that will have you thinking, I should not purchase this home. But we can give you resources so that you can do your own research. And we can also tell you what areas we cover. So this is a map of all of the areas that we cover. We have actually expanded this map because Atlanta is just becoming unaffordable at this point. We're about to talk about that in just a sec. But for all of my clients that love Gwinnett, like a lot of people are moving to Walton County. So that still gives you that Gwinnett feeling. For those that love Rockdale, they move to Covington, which is Newton County. Those that love Henry have been moving to Butts County, which is like Jackson, Georgia area. We even have Griffin, which is Spalding down here, and Carroll County, which is behind your Douglas and Paulden as well. So Atlanta is growing. So let's talk about the market for a second. Atlanta is on the rise, and we have not stopped. Even during COVID, they predicted, the experts predicted that everywhere in the United States will go backwards in sales. Atlanta was what they considered a super city where we exceeded sales expectations. In fact, that was the best year for many people, was during that COVID time. And so a lot of properties had multiple offers. We were going well over what the home was actually listed for, 50 and 60,000 over list price just to get a property. And so the market has reset. So right now, I want everybody to hear me that right now the average price point in Atlanta, and whenever you hear me say Atlanta, I am talking about the market, which consists of 13 counties. So all of these counties on here. So 13 counties, the average price point is $521,000. Okay. So whenever you think of average, whatever is in your mind that you associate average with, put $521,000 next to it. That's quite a bit, right? So 521,000 is what we consider starter home. That's a starter home price. That is an average home. 521K. So if you are under that budget, if you are at 300,000, 200,000, I want to say we have to have realistic expectations. Even rent is getting high. Every year, if you renew your lease, your rent is increasing. So we're at $2,000 and $3,000. And I always want to make it make sense, right? Like we want to call it spade a spade. And so we want to make sure that if you are paying $2,000 for a two-bedroom, 1,200 square foot home, the expectation should shift naturally if you want a 3,000 square foot home. 4 bedrooms, 2.5 bath, right? Because if you were in a apartment and you asked for a 4 bedroom, then it would naturally increase. I have seen such a gap in that connection. And I want to make sure that we understand that the more space, the more square footage, the more rooms equates to more price. So it is sometimes hard to say that, hey, I'm in an 1,800 square, or not even 1,800, I'm in an 1,100 square foot apartment and my price should be the same in a 4 bedroom home on a basement. It has to make sense, y'all. And so we will absolutely shoot for the budget that you're looking for, but I do want you to know that that purchase price might not be what you want. So we always go through that prior to you even going through credit repair. I literally have this conversation with every single person because I want to make sure that your expectations meet your budget. Those two things have to match. Okay. And hopefully there's a bit of flexibility in it because this is an investment. The beautiful part about real estate and why it's the number one wealth tool is you can sell it at any time. If you move into the property, you can say, you know what, I don't like this after 60 days. I'm going to sell the property or I'm going to put a tenant in the home. I'm going to put a tenant in this property and I'm going to move on. And that's the beauty is because you are the owner. You have full right to do whatever you decide to do with the home. As a tenant in a apartment, you have to go by the rules of the owner. So the owner is getting the benefit. The owner is getting the equity in the home. So the equity is the amount that you owe versus the value. So whatever that gap is, if the value is 350 and you only owe 300,000, you have $50,000 in equity and you can use that money if you desire to. Many people go get businesses started. They go and do renovations to the home. Like there's various things. But as a tenant, you can't do that, right? Like you can't tap into the equity. And so that is the beauty of real estate because you can even use that equity to sell the property if you desire to and put it towards the next home versus having to get a whole nother job to make $100,000. It just will naturally sit. So this is what I teach my clients because I'm an investor first. So I want to teach you all how to invest, how to actually see the vision so that you begin to grow with wealth. Most of my clients start with something small. They'll start, I mean, with, back in the day, we could find a townhouse for $60,000. And now, and I'm thinking of a client as I'm speaking about this, we started at like one something, and now they're in a $500,000 home because we've done the process over and over again, and they have not changed their careers. They are still, one is a teacher. I have firefighters. I have all walks of life, right? And that's kind of how you see that on HGTV. It's like, how did this teacher get $1 million home? Well, this is probably not their first purchase. Is I doubt that is their first purchase in order to just afford it on a teacher salary, right? It's very difficult to. But they probably have invested to where they have enough to put down. And that's the game. That's what you have to make sure that you prepare for so that you can do it again. Most people are not staying in homes for 30 years anymore. Most folks now, it dropped to 5 to 7 years, then it went to 3 to 5. Now it is at 1 to 3 years because people are becoming more informed. So they now know, like, oh, wow, this was easy and I can do this over and over again. I'm not required to stay here. People are not as nervous anymore, right? And so you now have the knowledge. You have social media, even, which you got to be careful with because sometimes social media makes it seem as though it's a one rule for everybody, which is not the case. But because of that exposure, it at least allows you to ask more questions. And that's what we want so that we can give you the correct answer. But these are the areas. So 521,000, that is the average price point in Atlanta. I close people all the time. I got a client shopping right now she's at think she's at 170, 170. I have another client that I have a listing for 3.5 million. So I'm all over the place when it comes to price point. I don't discriminate on pricing. So, if you think that, oh, Kia, you only deal with certain clients, that ain't me. So I deal with any client that is serious. If you're not serious, then you are not my audience. But if you are, I will get you closed all day long. Okay. So these are the areas. And, if you know that you're on the lower price point, and I would say under 300, anything under 300 it can become challenging. But if we're under that $300,000 mark, then we're going to be talking about a bit of flexibility there on product and possibly location. So that's that. Make sure I don't have any questions. Yep, yes, rent definitely increasing from 12.52 bedroom to $2,400 for a three. That's right. It is a real thing. So also look at the square footage because I think that is something that, and I don't always say this in our meetings, but I do say it on my one-on-ones because sometimes there's no correlation between the difference, right? Of like, well, I'm paying 1,800 right now. And it's like, but what are you paying 1,800 for? You're paying $1,800 for 2 bedrooms. You're wanting a 4 bedroom. So naturally, then the mindset should shift with that. Any areas on the map fit or qualify for USDA? Yes. So, well, no, 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 no. No, nothing on the map qualifies for USDA. Now, behind it in the gray, yes, yes. So Carroll County, yes, parts of it. Um, Newton, parts of Newton, parts of Walton, yes. So USDA goes by population count. USDA is also very strict. This is what I don't like about USDA. It's very strict on debt to income ratio. I mean, very strict. Like I can't go past the 43. So on a normal day, like FHA, I can go up to 56.7% for debt to income. So that means that all of your debt divided by your income gives me a percentage of 56.7%. USDA, I am restricted down to 43. That is very low. So either you have high income and not a whole lot of debt, or I'm going to be buying a smaller home or a more affordable property. And hopefully in those outskirts, you can find more house anyway for the buck. That is the hope. But I mean, everywhere is getting kind of pricey. So, but that's the USDA. Some parts of Hampton and Henry County were selling properties that qualify. We'll have to check on that because the population count, depending on where in Henry. So there's a map that you can put the address in, and it will literally tell you whether you qualify for Jackson, like Butts, Georgia, is perfect. Do you try to get fixed rate mortgages? Oh yeah, every property. Thank you, Shamika, for putting that. But yes, every you can put the address in that USDA, go to the eligibility map, and it'll tell you if the address that you're talking about qualifies for USDA or not. Every loan that I provide is a fixed rate, every single one. Especially if you're using down payment assistance, is fixed. It's not a variable rate. People don't really do variable anymore. Um, and some of those can feel, and I guess this is perspective, predatory to me. I think that's where a lot of people messed up, is getting those like balloon mortgages where it's super low, and I've started to see them kind of come back of the buy downs. A lot of new construction is doing that right now, where they will buy your rate down for a year or two, and then it blows up in the end because it goes back to the original adjustment at the very end. Now you are qualified based on the higher number, but it gives you kind of like that breathing room up front. And that's how you're saying like the 3.99s and the 4.99s. Like there's is something else with it. And those cannot be paired with down payment assistance either, by the way. You have to bring your own money to closing. Now, money to closing, let's talk about that. You got to have something saved, y'all. You can't be out here buying a house with absolutely zero down. You have to have something because remember those three out of pocket costs. You need your earnest money, you need your inspection, you need your appraisal. So during this time frame, I am also looking at your assets. You have to have some money. You got to have some money. Even when you're getting an apartment, they typically want security deposit down. So with the house, it's the same thought process, right? So you have to save every dollar during this time frame. If there's no other time that you're disciplined, be disciplined in this moment. It normally moves very, very quick, but you want to save every dollar. One thing that people utilize to not stress them out so much is their 401k, where they borrow from themselves. So 401k is the most incredible tool that you can find because normally you all are contributing to this 401k and you've never tapped into it. So the thing becomes, hey, I'd rather borrow from myself than either borrowing from someone else or working 2 and 3 jobs just to save enough to have for down payment. Even if you're using down payment assistance and I get all of the closing costs from the seller, sometimes the file also still requires reserves. So the file may say, well, we need to have at least 1 to 2 months of reserves on the file. And that is your whatever your monthly payment is, times that by 1 or 2. And I'll always tell you whether the file requires reserves or not. But it always helps the file to look better as well, especially if you have a lot going on with your credit or you had a previous bankruptcy or things of that nature. Reserves help because it reduces the risk. Remember, we are a bank and we are looking at risk. So we don't know you all personally. We have no clue of your life, but we do know your history based on your credit and how you've actually handled your credit, right? And so we're looking at that and we are assessing risk and we're saying, I don't know. I don't know if they're going to pay me back. That's the main part, right? Like, is the lender going to get paid back their money? This is a loan. So they're like, I just want to know if I'm going to get paid. I don't care about what else you're doing in your personal life, but am I going to get paid back? And they can only tell that from your experience with credit and debt. And so that is something that you want to have. But if you have reserves, it makes your file look better because it says, oh, well, even if they had a hard time, they still have a month or 2 of reserves where I will normally get paid back. All right. So moving on, home inspection, just kind of keep in mind that a home inspection is not there to pass or fail a home. It is there to simply disclose concerns. And I'm going to go a little fast, y'all, because it's 12:11. So where they normally disclose concerns. So they will be checking the appliances, the plumbing, electrical, HVAC, ventilation, roof and attic, foundation, and then the general structure of the property. We have a licensed general contractor on our team as well. He handles most of everything that happens with a home, unless you have someone. But sometimes the inspector requires another eye from a licensed individual, and so he will go out because sometimes the seller doesn't want to do the repair, but will give us funds for the repair. So they'll go out, do tell us a cost analysis for it, and then we can negotiate that amount as well. So anything that you need, anything that you can think about that is real estate related, we have in-house, so we don't have to go and you don't have to use your own resources. So plan. So everyone is adhering to the plan. Everything as far as your expirations in the contract will be on the calendar. So everyone will have a calendar invite. Everyone will know of their dates. Each part of the process has a different individual that handles that process on our team. And so once you go under contract, you'll be speaking to Ashley and myself. I'm always a part of the conversation, more so after you go under contract than in the very beginning. That's more of a Manny and Jay. But once you're under contract, you'll be talking to me all the time. And so, although I have over 200 clients from my real estate folks and my mortgage folks, my clients always state that I feel like I'm the only person. And that is because we are very organized. So we do go by calendar. It is very rare, unless you are under contract, that you will have a ton of access to me. So that will be your Jay and Manny. But I have to reserve my space for those that are actually under contract and that we are negotiating deals and things like that. I have to protect those clients' interests. Okay. Um, so adhering to the Ten Commandments, and we're about to wrap up here in just a sec, but this is the most important part that I want you to hear. I want you to write and take notes, because if you do something on here, you will absolutely stop your process. Okay. So number one, thou shalt not change jobs, become self-employed, or quit your job. The reason that you don't want to do this is because going from a W-2 to 1099 or even self-employed individual is a absolute no-no in the world of mortgages. Remember that this is a bank. I've said that probably 5 times now. It's a bank, right? And banks are very smart. So they know the trends of a self-employed individual. And the trends state that most businesses fail within the first 3 years. Most, right? So they go off of average. And if most businesses fail within the first 3 years and you have a 30-year mortgage, that is a concern. That means that you will not pay us back at some point, right? So we have to see that also you are grossing income. So if you all are 1099 or self-employed and you have written everything off on that Schedule C or on your S Corp docs, and because I have to go by your tax returns as well, because I don't have a pay stub, right? So I'm now going off of tax returns, and I have to have something to put together your income. And the only thing that I can go off of is what did you claim on your taxes, not your gross, your net, right? So I'm going off of that line 31 on your Schedule C. If it is a negative number, you cannot buy a house because you have no income. You might have said, "Oh no, I just did it for taxes." Unfortunately, we have nothing to go off of outside of that document. So you want to be very careful during this time frame. And now it's after April 15th, and I'm having this conversation, right? But if you went out and you wrote everything off and you didn't show all that income, or you didn't talk to me before you did so, most of you all did. We could have a problem. We could have a big problem when it comes to income. So we'll discuss it, of course. But do not change your job, because a W-2 person is a little bit more comforting to the lender, because it is thought that this business was established enough to be able to afford an employee. And so if you can afford it, that gives us a little bit more stability that the company will be open and that you'll keep going to work. But if you switch over, you were, let's say, you were a nurse working in a hospital and you switched to travel nurse and now you're 1099, I messed up again. So most people have to go back to the hospital, or my truckers have to go and get a job. The beautiful part is, especially for those industries, is they normally give me an offer letter in like 2 days. If you're W-2, I can get an offer letter. I can use an offer letter. As long as you start the job within 90 days, I can use an offer letter. I don't even need a pay stub, but it has to be attached to W-2. It cannot be a 1099. You cannot be self-employed or a contract worker. Otherwise, I would have to use 2 years of history and I have to average those 2 years. So I'll see your 24 return and your 25 return, your line 31, and I will average those 2 years or your K1s if you're an escort, and I'll see what that actual income is and still average it over the course of 2 years. All right. So no job changes, zero. I always tell my clients, if you hate your boss now, hate them for another 30 days. All we need is 30 days. That's it. Okay. Number two, thou shalt not charge cards excessively or let your accounts fall behind. Remember that we are looking at risk. So I want y'all to follow me, okay? So let's say you have a credit card and the credit card is $25 a month for the minimum, not what you want to pay. Because some of y'all pay $100 and it's a 25 minimum balance, which is cool, right? It's great. But that's not what I'm looking at. I'm looking at the minimum monthly balance. And it says it's only $25 a month. And you are late on that. You're late on the $25 a month, but you're coming to me asking me for a house for $3,000 a month. Okay. We want to make that make sense. I'll say, well, how were you just late last month on $25, but then you want me to give you a $500,000 home and it's $3,000 a month? Those numbers are wrong, by the way, but estimation purposes. That's how a bank assesses your file. They're saying, I don't know, you were late or it charged off or it's in collections and it was only this amount and now you want this from me. So I want you all to have that mindset so that you can know why I'm having the conversations that I may be having with you or what I'm looking for or what a bank is looking for. But we're always looking at risk assessment because we can only go by history because we do not know you personally. Okay. Number three, thou shalt not set money or spend money you have set aside for closing. I always use this story. I've had clients before that purchased properties, and some of the clients went out and spent money at like the Versace store. I had to tell them, hey, you're going to have to take that right on back. Okay. Like that was your money for closing. And so you have got to keep, like sometimes how I structure a file, it requires reserves. It may not mean that you have to bring money to closing, but I have to see the money sitting in the account until the closing is done. So you cannot say, oh, well, I don't need any money. I can go spend my money. That is not how it works. So you have to be very strict during this time. I also want to talk about something of what I'm seeing a lot. A lot of Klarnas, a lot of afterpays, a lot of those buy now or get now, pay later. They count that as debt, y'all. That is debt. It's revolving debt. So if I see payments of that on your transaction history, because I do have to have your bank statement, it can sometimes reduce your debt to or increase your debt to income ratio. A lot of times, what I've been saying is most people have paid them off, but do not establish anything new right now. That is a debt, and we have to count it against you. It can mess up your entire process if there's not enough income. So try your hardest to stay away from those plans right now. You can do it later, but not right now. Okay. Even like I've been seeing rent, who is it through Dave or Flex or something like that, where they pay the rent up front or give you the money for the rent. That's not typically great, right? From the eyes of a person that's about to give you a mortgage loan. So try your hardest to stay away from it. I have a budget tool, being a former banker, I have all of these sources. And I really think that some people also don't know how much they can afford. I have some clients that may say, okay, I can only afford 1,500 when truly they can afford 2,500, but they haven't done their budget yet. So it's not me saying, no, 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 you can afford it. Like, really, we need to write it down because sometimes we may be undercutting ourselves and may not just be comfortable with it because we've never actually planned for it. So I have a tool. If you're looking for it or if you're interested in it, let me know and I will absolutely send it to you. It is a godsend. Like so many people give me such great reviews for it, and it's super simplistic in thought. But if you don't write it down, you got to write it down and make it plain, right? And so sometimes it's out of sight, out of mind, and you just may be assuming that you can't afford it. Or you could be me, where you are overspending in the wrong space. For me, it's Uber Eats, DoorDash, okay? My child is always looking for some sort of food. And you could have been spending thousands of dollars in food apps when that could have went to your mortgage. But you could quickly see that tool or in the tool, this is where all of your money is going. And this is what I need to adjust to get an asset. DoorDash and Uber Eats is not an asset. It's actually too much. I need to cook more. But it will allow you to adjust so that you can get something that you can comfortably lay your head down on. I always say, if I'm gonna work hard, I better be able to come home to peace. And when I come home, I need to be at peace. I don't need to come home to no foolery or folks outside where they're making my value of my home go down. I need to make some money from everything that I do. And this is one of the ways that you can do it. All right. So what did I say? Number three, don't spend money. Like during this time, don't spend a dollar, not $1. Thou shalt not omit debts or liabilities from your loan application. So some people go and buy a car. That is, I'm gonna say 4 and 5 is together. Thou shalt not buy a car, truck, or van, or you may be living in it. We do not buy cars before we buy houses. A car is a depreciating asset. So as soon as you drive off the lot, it begins to depreciate in value. But what doesn't depreciate is that monthly payment, right? Like that remains where it is. And some people have high monthly payments right now because of whenever you purchase the property or the car, the interest rate was high due to your credit at the time. So a lot of us have already had that conversation of like, hey, we got to figure out what we're doing with this car. Also know that a car is weighed the same way as a mortgage. So if I see a late car payment, it could be an auto decline just because you had a late car payment. So be careful, careful, careful with these cars. Do not buy a car during this time. Do not, do not, do not. This is probably my biggest rule. Do not buy a car during this time. I've had a client that told me up front, Kia, my car is gonna clunk out. We gotta hurry up and get this house so I can go get me a car. And I'd be doggone if the car clunked out the week before closing. The week before closing. I said, unfortunately, I'm sorry, you're gonna have to go rent. You got to go lease a car. Because if I see a car on this profile, you are not buying this house because your debt to income ratio is going to increase. Some people don't have car notes. And so my ratio of how I set things up, it moves so quickly. So you don't want to buy a car first. Like, let's talk through that. There are other solutions. Number 6, thou shalt not buy furniture. We don't have a house. We don't have a house right now. We are not buying furniture. We are not, celebrating early. I remember T.I. saying, what we celebrating? We ain't there yet, right? So we got to buy the house first and then we celebrate after. It's about to be these seasons where all of, what is it? Labor Day and things of that nature. Everything is going to come up and there's going to be a sale. Do not buy anything right now, honestly. So I have folks calling me all the time saying, Kia, can I get this refrigerator? My answer is no. Unless you have a lot of excess of cash, then sure. But if you do not, and you know your own situation, no, the answer is no. Number 7, thou shalt not get any new credit cards because they pull your credit. You do not want to pull credit. Remember that rates is based off of your credit score and some other things as well. So whenever a person, I want to say this really quick, whenever a person is asking me about the rates or you hear people just randomly talking about rates, I actually hate it. I hate the conversation because it is so misleading. A rate, every single person gets their own rate sheet. There's a sheet of rates, right? So it goes everywhere from like, let's say 4.99 to 8%. But your specific rate sheet is based on you only, nobody else, right? So when people give blanket rates of like, oh, well, the rates are in the 5s right now, that may not be your rate. And it's because it's actually the cost for the rate. That's the better question is what is the cost for the rate? Because at a 4.99, that 4.99 could cost $20,000 to get to that rate for a person that may have a 580 credit score. Now, a person with a 700 credit score could possibly get that 4.99 at $5,000. But there's always a cost for every single rate. 5.875, 5.99, 6%, 6.125. Every single rate has a cost. And sometimes there is no cost where that is considered your par rate, where it breaks even. Normally, that's a higher rate because that's your break even point. But it depends on the person. It depends on your profile. It depends on your credit score. It depends on your loan to value. It depends on your debt to income. All of those things will tell us what the cost for the rate is. So I will let you know that. But I typically have that conversation after we've gone through credit repair because of course that's one of the reasons or one of the pillars of what the cost for the rate is. I hope that makes sense. If it does, please drop it in the chat. I hope that makes sense. Right? So it's the cost for the rate. Send me the budget tool. I'm going to take a picture of this so I can send budget tools. If y'all want the budget tool, text me as well. All right. Um, I'm in the group with everybody. Budget tool, budget tool. But did y'all understand that part around the rate portion of how that works? I hope so. Drop that in the chat for me if you understood that. Did that make sense? Okay. All right. So, thou shall not get any new credit cards because also rates are based on the bucket, right? So remember I said that rates is based on your credit score. So if you're at, let's say a 620 and then you go and apply for a new credit card and you drop to a 618, now I'm like in a totally different bucket. Now the cost for my rate went from 5,000 to 10,000 because we just went down a bucket. So no new applications, okay? All right, so going on number 8, thou shalt not co-sign for anyone for any reason during this buying time. So I normally position this for my parents out there, like myself, my daughter's going to college, and it's time for you to start filling out that FAFSA form. Or maybe you're going back to school, right? And you have to fill out a new loan form. All of those loans go towards your debt to income ratio. For the people out there, whenever I'm asking a question about an income driven repayment plan and you tell me, oh, I got a zero payment or oh, my loans are in forbearance or my loan is in deferment, none of that matters to a lender. And let me tell you why. They're not looking at that. Remember, they're predicting the future. We're looking at a 30-year span. And so we want to know after deferment, after forbearance, what will the monthly payment be? So the only thing that we can actually use outside of if I have zero as a payment because you're on a student loan plan, or if it's in deferment, I have to then resort to using 0.5% of the total student loan debt. And that could be quite a bit. Some people have six figures in student loans. So I'm having to use that 0.5% towards your debt to income ratio. That can mess us up. So if you have an income driven repayment plan that is I'll say a penny or more, I can use that penny. I can't use zero, which is crazy, but I can use anything over a penny. So if y'all need help with that, let me know. I'm on the phone every day with clients, calling the student loan department with them so that we can get a plan. Okay. So if that's you, let me know, but don't co-sign during this time. Or this could also change your time frame. You might have thought you had until August or September to purchase, but then you forgot that the child has to go to school. So now I got to prepare for the child, but my house as well. Okay. So all of those things, like it all falls into a timeline that we might have thought that we had that we might not have. All right. All right. So number 9, this is the biggest one for me. Thou shalt not make large deposits without first checking with your loan officer. So remember, we are a bank. I know y'all tired of hearing me say that. We are a bank. And guess what banks look for? Money laundering. So whenever they see large drops of cash into the account, they're like, wait a second, where did this come from? This is not that person's normal history. So I have a lot of clients that are saving funds in a safe at home. They have shoe boxes of money, like, just different things, different walks of life, their own, whatever you do, I do not care, honestly. However you save your money, I don't care. But let me tell you what I do care about is properly positioning yourself. And so you cannot drop wads of cash into your account that was in your safe. That is not how this works. So it has to be seasoned. Funds have to be seasoned for 30 to 60 days, depending on the product that you're utilizing. So there is a way to transfer, and this even includes gift funds. So if parents are giving you gifts, or if maybe you and your spouse are not on the application, only one of you all are doing the house, and then the other spouse is going to give you some money from their account, that's considered a gift. And you can't just drop gift funds into an account. So we have to do it the right way. So just let me know that, hey, kid, I got some cash sitting over here I'm going to use for closing, or I'm going to get a gift. But do not, hear me clearly, do not drop that money in your account. Do not drop the money in your account. I'll tell you how to do it to where you can use the money. Okay? Okay. Thou shall not change banks because there's no history with that new bank. And these banks are also pulling credit these days, and we are not trying to drop your credit score. All right. So whenever you're making an offer, I'm almost done, y'all. Whenever you are making an offer, there can be three responses. You can either have an acceptance of that offer, a rejection, or a counter. So a counter is anything that might anything from the original offer that was sent over that they just don't agree with. So let's say a date, right? Like maybe we wanted to close on the 25th and the seller wants to close on the 26th. That's a counter offer. So don't get nervous about counter offers. We like those because it means that they're entertaining us. So we're okay with that. Okay. Move-in date. So sometimes the move-in date needs to be a bit flexible. It just really depends on the property. So some sellers may not have the funds to actually move out of the home until after closing. So they may ask for a post possession date. So they may say, hey, we can close on the 25th, but I can't give you access to the home until the 27th. Because I need to move. I need the money in order to move. Or I want to make sure that you can actually close on this deal before I uproot my life and then we don't close, right? So that can happen. So if we need a post possession date, we will know that very early on, and you can make the decision of whether you want to stay with the deal or not. Closing. Whenever you go to closing, you need two forms of ID. You need a primary, which could be a driver's license or a passport, and then you need a secondary form like credit card or something like that. Anytime you are wiring or sending money, which is typically earnest money, over $1,000 or even closing costs, you have to wire it in the state of Georgia. It is a law now. So it has to be wired to the closing attorney. So we will tell you who that closing attorney is, and then the closing attorney will give you wire instructions. If you receive an email and I'm asking you for a wire, it is not me. That is wire fraud. So you want to be very careful and make sure that you're contacting the attorney's office and myself to ensure that is the right person. That you don't just send some money to some random person because wire fraud is very, very real. Okay. So you'll get a copy of your deed in the mail, by the way, from the attorney. So they'll send that to you within like 45 days after it's been recorded with the county. So some frequently asked questions. Will I tell you about all the newest homes available? Yes, as long as it's within your budget. I do not talk about things that do not matter. I am very busy and want to make sure that we are having intentional conversations throughout the entire process. Will you inform me of all the homes, all the real estate companies, or only my brokerage? Absolutely. You will know about every single property that is within your budget and your location. Can I help you find new construction? We do it all the time. Absolutely. Some new construction is actually not online, so you have to have relationships with these builders, which I have. We sell a lot of houses, so they always come to me actually. And so I'll be able to tell you about off-market deals as well as deals online. One thing about new construction that I always state as well is that you all can go on the weekend and look at various homes, and that's fine. But just know that whenever you are looking in a home or even going to an open house, you have to tell the client or the agent that's there that you are represented. If you do not tell the agent, they will make you pay my commission, and I don't work for free. So my fee, and everybody has a different fee, but our fee is 3%, 3%, okay? So that is our fee. We typically have the seller pay our fees. But if you go out and you do not tell these folks that you have an agent, they will make you pay my fee because they won't add me to that contract. So make sure you're alerting them that, hey, I have an agent and you need to include my agent. Also, do not sign anything without me looking at it. This doesn't really happen at all. This happened like maybe once in my entire career. But don't sign anything because these new construction agents will try to pressure you to signing things. And I need to read the contract. I read every word because I want to make sure that you're protected in the contract. And those contracts are typically really written to protect the builder. So we want to make sure that you're protected as well. How does for sale by owner work? So typically they don't want to pay, which is why they're selling the property themselves. They normally undercut themselves though. So a lot of times you don't see for sale by owners anymore. Like most of them have kind of gotten smart and they've started using agents. But if it is a situation where you find a for sale by owner, I need to negotiate the commission with them and make sure that they are paying me. I do want to say this too about commission. If the seller, remember that the buyer has always, it is not new, has always been responsible for the entire process of the purchase. So the seller, we are asking the seller to contribute to our commission. So if they give us the full 3%, which we typically receive, then that is great. However, some sellers may not have room to give a full three. They might can only provide 2.5% or 2.75 or whatever it is, 2.25. If that is the case, I will always let you know because you are responsible for whatever the difference is at closing. So we'll let you know what those figures are if it is not the full 3%, but it's honestly pretty rare. And so we'll have that discussion. Okay. So going back through the property after an offer is made, but before possession, can you go back to the property? The answer is yes, with an appointment, and you can only typically go back during due diligence and during our final walkthrough. Remember, these homes, even if it is vacant, it is not our home. It is someone else's property, and we have to have permission to go onto the land and to also enter the home. So everything has to be scheduled and we have to request it and it has to be approved for us to be able to go into someone else's home. Okay. Um, all right. Going back through the funding options one more time, we have FHA, which is the most commonly utilized product, VA, conventional USDA. Those are your four product types. Now, we do have for my entrepreneurs out there that may not have filed your taxes and you have bank statements or a P&L, I do have alternative financing products that I use all the time, but you have to be very cash heavy. So there is no down payment assistance for an alternative doc file because it's a very risky product, but I can get it done without you having to do taxes. Some people is like, hey, I'll put the money on my house versus giving Uncle Sam the money. So if that is you, let me know and we can go that route. Okay. Um, Out of pocket costs, one more time, earnest money, inspection, appraisal, and then miscellaneous fees could be the cost for like your utilities getting turned on. We'll send you this moving checklist as well. Some people forget to actually change their mail. So this will be a reminder, and we send this to you 7 days prior to closing, alongside any invoices that we might have received or, what have you from the entire process, termite letters, things of that nature. All right, so if you have not completed the job form, this is the QR code. Please take a picture of it or click on the link. Jay actually sent it to everyone this morning. Click on that and please complete it. Please complete it so that we can know what type of property you're actually looking for. Okay, hope everybody got this. If not, Texas. How does someone win or lose with you? So this is the very end, and this is probably my favorite part. So I typically go through, but our classes are getting a little bit larger. But most of our clients are stating that, hey, how you win with me is being honest. How you win with me is getting me what I want. How you win with me is listening to my needs. All of those things, right? And how you lose is the total opposite, not being truthful, not being honest, deceiving, putting me in something I didn't ask for. All of those things can make you lose a relationship, right? And so there's also the question of how do you feel or what do you feel like you have the right to expect from me as your real estate professional, and then I have the right to expect from you as a client. So this is a two-sided relationship. It's not just one-sided. And so outside of your expectations, we have expectations as well. So from our side, and I want to go through our process because I think it's important for us, especially if you are on our credit repair program. It is very strict, very, very strict, very, very strict. You have to communicate. If there is a lack of communication, or if you have not turned in your required documentation within 2 days, you will be removed from the program. We will put someone else in that spot because we have people on a wait list. So it is very, very strict. Okay. And so you have to communicate, you have to turn in our credit specialist is going to ask for codes and things like that. You have to respond in a timely manner. One day can mess up your approval because you all know credit, right? Some things could reappear, but that one day that I need to pull the score and you missed out on responding, I might have just missed out on the opportunity to have a 700 score, and then the next day it could have went to 699 because something reappeared. If something reappears, they will take it back off. But what I'm saying is I could have caught it at the time because I don't need multiple pools on my side for the mortgage side. I just need one. I just need one pool. So we have to catch it when it's fresh. So you definitely want to communicate all the time. That is a number one for me. Lack of communication shows intent to run away and not be serious with the process. And we will absolutely remove you from the program. And we also have a full attorney side as well. So please, y'all, only serious people that we want to mesh with. Okay. The second thing is flexibility. Every single one of our clients have a job. And so I will tell you, like my client that's going out today, she's seeing it firsthand. She's shopping in Gwinnett, and every house has gone under contract in like hours. Okay. And so, you do have to be flexible. One thing that we are helping with flexibility in is having, we started doing this around COVID time, but we do virtual tours. So if you're at work, but you see a property that you absolutely feel like you'll love, we'll go out and do a virtual tour for you so that we're not missing out on the opportunity to offer on the home. And then you can go out after the fact whenever you get off or what have you. But we want to make sure that we are not missing opportunities, just based on our work schedules and things like that. Like we're all kind of moving and shaking, but we want to definitely help you. Some clients will go on their lunch break. Some clients will go after work. Some clients will go before work. Whatever you got to do, that flexibility helps us to reach the common goal. So please let us know if that will work for you. I also trying to think of all the other things that we require. I will also say those that wake up angry every day. So your negative Nancy's, your negative Neds, we can't please y'all. I don't know, right? So those folks are not our audience. I do have a referral for you that may be able to handle it. We just don't have the time. We like good people. We want to see good people win. We want good people to go to the top. And so, you'll have a bad day, but every day, um, we want good people. So you can see our reviews. We have a 5-star review. We have several clients that have gone through the process. We like good folks because we just resonate. So I just want to see y'all win. But if you're negative every day, can't help you. But I think that's it. I think. Next steps is after this. If you have not signed your buyer brokerage agreement, please do so. I do not look at a house or provide advice. I actually legally cannot without that buyer brokerage agreement being signed. Then we'll start seeing properties. If you have not gone to credit repair, we are sending in increments of typically 10 to 20 people. So I'm about to actually send my next set over probably today for those that have done all 3 steps. So if you have done the buyer brokerage agreement, turned in documentation, and turned in docs, did the application and the buyer brokerage agreement, then you will be sent to credit repair after our loan review. So I got to have that loan review with you as well. Okay, Jennifer, can you text the group that, please? So that way my team can get that over to you, and I'll make sure of that as well. All right. If you all have completed, Diane, will I be in this group? Possibly. I got to look at the list. We got a long list. So I apologize. I don't really know where everyone is in the group, but my goal is to actually send everybody, especially if you're like June or July for a need of closing, let me know. Let me know when your lease is expiring so that I need to push you like now. Because sometimes depending on what's on the credit, it takes a little bit longer. Also, if we have not talked, if we don't have not had our loan review, please schedule that because I cannot send you without that loan review being completed. Okay. So please schedule that. That should be in your email from me from the rate.com email. Reply back to that with your docs and then schedule your loan review. That's next steps. Okay. Any questions, concerns, confessions? Need help with student loans. Okay, text me. Text me, text me, text me. My lease expires in June. Okay, cool. Let's do it. Miss Diane, please text me so that I can make sure you're in this group. And I don't know if I've talked to you yet for the loan review. I have to check. I have too many. Y'all be having just so much going on. So please charge it to my mind and not my heart. Um, can I send you the brokerage agreement? I don't know who this is. I'm so sorry. It says iPhone. Um, if I have not sent a brokerage agreement, please text our group. So we have several people in our group so that we can just make sure that we have not, that I don't miss you because I'm typically doing 800 things. So a person on our team, we always like to make sure that our clients are never forgotten. So please text the group. Hey, Shima. Okay. Text me, text me. Send all the docs, have everything you needed from me. Okay, I'll check. I think I do. Typically, if I have looked over everything, then I'm good. You're just being, you're just waiting to go to credit repair, but I will confirm. And always give me like 24 hours, y'all, if possible. If it's over the weekend. Oh, that's important. Hours of operation. We are typically open from 10 to 8 p.m. 10 to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday till 5 on Saturday by appointment only. And then we are closed on Sundays. So if you have any questions, you can always text the group. That's our business line. You can always text that and we will come back to it if it is outside of business hours the next day, okay? Or the next business day. If make sure you text the group. It should be with Jay and Manny and myself. I'll put this number on here as well. 404-908-3077. Text that number and that way. But I would prefer for you all to text the group, the one that has Manny as well, so that they're not missing something because they're the ones that need to send it. I could miss it. How fast can the move-in process be after approval? Oh, 2 days. No, I'm just playing. No, honestly, 7 days. But if you are using down payment assistance, I would say 30 days for down payment, unless it's an in-house down payment assistance program. If it's in-house, I'm doing right now, I'm doing actually a couple of them in 2 weeks. So it can be fast. Depending on what's on credit, it's been taking about 30 days, maybe 45 days to get through credit repair. So prepare that in your mind as well. It takes some time to get through the credit, right? So if you're in June, I need to be sending you now. Seriously, you need to be there right now. So make sure you've done all the steps because we do not skip steps and it has to be quick. Do you work with NACA? No, I hate NACA. And let me tell you why I hate NACA because I always want to explain my reasoning. NACA was founded by predatory lenders, so Wells Fargo and Bank of America. And so what the government did is made them give money back to folks, which is great. What angers me about the program is that they do not care about contract guidelines or dates. And so I could easily lose your earnest money because they are government assistance and it goes so slow. And they just don't care. They will literally have you coming back to the office. They piece things together. They don't communicate well with the clients. So you would have had an appointment and went to the appointment, and then they'll be like, "Oh yeah, also bring me back another pay stub." And you're like, "You could have told me that before I came." So I don't like it. I hate it actually. I feel like it is a waste of time. I could have closed you 10 times before they get to close you. Now, if you have the most patience in the world, then sure, go through it. You know, if you have the most patience, it is a great product after you go through the hell that's behind it. But otherwise, I'm not, I don't have to do NACA. I have other products that we can use, and it's just, I don't have it. I don't have the time. My rental people are always asking me for my renewal, and I'm not sure what to tell them. Um, Kiva, get on if you can. Can you text me? I need to look at your time frame because I need to pull your file to just make sure that we're good. So text me, please. Absolute facts. Thank you. Not in credit. Okay, if you're not in credit repair, Kenley, we can make it do what it do. If I think I just spoke to you yesterday. Yeah, we can close in 2 weeks. I got to remember if we're doing down payment assistance. If it's down payment assistance, then it's 30 days for down payment assistance. Yeah. Any other questions, concerns, confessions? Y'all are giving me good questions for the group. Anything else? What if we can't find a house and budget? Then we may need to either we gotta assess, right? So we have to see if we can add on some additional income, or we might have to be a little bit more flexible on what we're desiring. Because there's always a house out there. I always say don't get married to the first property, especially if it's your first property. Um, but if it's your, okay, thank you. If it's your first property, it's not gonna be perfect, right? It's just not. And sometimes we want something that's super perfect and it's just not there. But I honestly have not had an issue with locating a property, even at a lower price point. I just haven't. So as long as the person has a realistic expectation, then we're okay. But if you don't, then you will never find anything. It doesn't matter what the budget is. You just won't find it unless you're going to build custom. But we shouldn't have a problem. Let's talk to Keisha, and just see what that budget looks like. And what I also do from time to time is just send some properties to you. And you can also send me inspo properties. Send me some of the properties that you've seen, and let me know so I can just get a feel of what your taste is. And then I can tell you if it's realistic or not. Y'all, as y'all can tell, I'm a straight shooter. Like I will tell you exactly. I have couth though. I will say that. But I will literally tell you whether it's realistic or not for like the location, because location matters, budget matters. It's so many different things. Like it's a layered approach. And also, if you're using some sort of down payment assistance, some of them are area specific. So I may say like, hey, if we don't have any money, we gotta. It's like one of those call a spade thing. Let's go where the money is. Then we might have to go where the money is. And I have several region specific programs that give you way more money. So if you can go where the money is, then the world is your oyster. But if not, then we may have to be a little bit more flexible. Is it frowned upon to break my lease if I am able to? Not listen, if you're asking me that, my opinion, this is opinion, I don't think so. But you do need to look at what is in the lease because sometimes, and I'm gonna say this too, that I've noticed is that a lot of times, these companies, if it is a company and not an individual, they will allow you to break your lease as long as you tell them that you're purchasing a home. Because a lot of times, the amount that you are paying in rent, they can increase it if you move. So they'll say, "Oh, no problem." But you do have to speak to corporate. Don't talk to the people at the office. They're not the decision makers. Write a letter to corporate, and I will tell you that 9 out of 10 times that my clients have done this, they have been able to get out of that lease without having to add additional fees. So write corporate. And even for those that like are slim on funds, I'm like, listen, my opinion, I always say my opinion. My opinion is I'd rather save my money for my house than, and we can talk about the lease after the fact. Just my opinion, my opinion. I sent questions to the group. Okay. Any more questions? These are good questions. Y'all are asking good stuff. Any questions? Any concerns? Oh, one more thing that I want to mention. I typically do not show houses. I want to mention this. Someone brought this up before, and I want to make this very clear. I normally do not show properties. I do select the homes that you see. I'm the person that's sending you the properties, but it is very rare that I actually show a house. That's one function is showing a house. I have trained showing assistants that will go out and show you the property. I do all contracts, all negotiations. I do the bigger things. Showing a house is very small in our world. And so we do, our showing, we have a showing assistant that will go out and just open a door for you. And then we do the actual heavy lift. I don't allow people to write my contracts. I write all of my stuff. So, all of the major things that can cause a lawsuit or can cause funds being lost, I handle. Okay. All right. Y'all, it's 12:56. I done went super over today. If you, it is an incredible, beautiful day. God has blessed us today. So I definitely thank all of you all for joining us. If you have any questions or concerns that might pop up after this, please let me know. Send a group to the or a text to us so that way we can see it. Um, and I look forward to working with each and every one of you. If you have any questions, if anything just is like, I don't know, always ask before acting. That should be the message is always ask so that way we are properly preparing for home ownership. Okay. All right, good people. Have a good one. I look forward to working with you soon. This is your year. This is your year. You're going to buy a house this year. So I'm super excited for every one of you all. All right. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.